Hello and welcome to this episode of Keep the High Balls Low. As always, I'll be your host, Lewis Blair. I'm delighted to be joined by another guest that I really enjoyed watching play at Easter Road, playing for Hibs. There's a few other teams in there as well that we're going to cover, but today I'm joined by Rob Jones. Rob, thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
No, pleasure. Quite happy and open to talk about football. I think that's at the moment the only thing we can do. Yes, lockdown's coming to a close, thankfully, but now these podcast things seem to have taken off into some magnitude.
Yeah, it certainly kept me going, Rob. So for coming on today, I really appreciate it. We'll just go back to the start, if that's okay. You grew up in Stockton-on-Tees down south. How was life growing up, and when did you first fall in love with football?
Stockton's the closest place. I came from a place called Thornaby, which has probably moulded me into the person that I am today, to be brutally honest. Not the most affluent area I've lived in. You had to fight for everything that you got. But no, I think your childhood molds you into how you perceive things as an adult. And I think it was in that, 10, 12, 15 years that molded me into the person that I am today. Football really was, for me at an early stage, was just a bit of fun. I'd go to school early on the morning with my ball. I'd play football in the playground with my mates. But I never played football for a team till I was under 11s, which is, you look at it now, they're playing at 4, 5, and 6, so it was quite late. I was massive into my judo, so that was my passion when I was younger. And funnily enough, it was by, to be fair, it was quite. I was supposed to go to a grading for a judo belt. The alarm hadn't gone off at home. Mum and Dad slept in. I slept in, and we missed it. And then a knock on the door, and my friend asked me if I wanted to go and play football with his team on the Sunday, and that's where the passion started. That's what ignited it. Yeah, it became a bit more structured and to understand the game a little bit more, rather than just playing the playground with your mates. And from then on, I never really looked back. Judo then took a very, very distant second place, and football was all I really wanted to do. I didn't own a pair of football boots till I was 11, so my life compared to my children's life, it was completely different.
Do you think there was anything about doing judo that maybe helped you play football? It's obviously a very disciplined sport. Did you keep any of the values you were taught, or was there anything that you took from it in later in life?
Well, I think judo taught you that in sport you must be disciplined. So timekeeping, make yourself look presentable, listen, be coachable. I think it allows you to bring out that aggression inside you in a structured manner, as I might say. But no, I think all sports at some point create something that you look back on in the future. I'm coaching at the moment, and we tell the players as much as possible to go and play as many sports as possible. Because it's very different now to when we were kids. We were kids, and we played all the different sports going. But now I think it's become honed on one sport and one particular framework, and I think it's to the detriment of the youngster, really.
You ended up going to York City as a young lad. How did that come about, Rob, and how did you find it there?
Well, my manager in the grassroots at that time, he was one of the regional scouts for York City, and there was me and another player who actually went from there. Went, I think 4 or 5 times. I think I went before I was 12, because I think back then was when you were 12. I think you signed schoolboys. You didn't sign any before that. And then you continued on from there. But no, I went and I didn't really go on trial. I went and played a game against the York City in my age group for my team. And I think it's well documented. I was a centre forward there, and I scored 6 goals in that game. And the rest is history, really. Great guy called Ricky Sprazier became my lead coach at York. Fantastic guy. Really helped me an awful lot. And no, it was good, really good, until Ricky left. Ricky went to, I think it was Man United. I got a different coach, and as we're all aware, different coaches see different things in different ways. He then turned me from a centre forward, and quite a ferocious centre forward, into a part-time left back, and that didn't sit too well with me. And when I was 15, I rang the coach himself. I rang the club. I wrote my letter, and I asked to be released. And then, to be fair, that was probably the beginnings when I started to fall out of love with football. To be honest, that coach took it all away from me. It wasn't fun anymore, and he wasn't allowing me to do what I wanted to do, and that was to be playing the football on the pitch, and that was it. I'd already been taken away from my friends because it was now quite regimented that York City was in an academy, so I didn't play on a Saturday with my mates, didn't play on a Sunday with my mates. Everything was focused around this football, and then I wasn't given the opportunity that I felt I needed and I warranted. So I come out of it. I'm a big believer, if you don't enjoy doing something, then don't do it, because you'll never do it to the best of your ability. And I'm also a joint believer of everything happens for a reason. So in a perverse sort of way, he might have had a crystal ball and realised that I was eventually going to be a centre half.
So that's quite a big choice to make at that young age, and have that realisation that you're not enjoying it, Rob. Why do you think you had that realisation? Was it just a good upbringing? And well, obviously there must have been family members that were obviously helping you at that time, but a lot of us might have maybe stayed in the system and just kind of got lost in it. But you decided at that age to come out, and then eventually it ends up being the making.
To be fair, those people who know me know how mentally strong I actually am, and you talk about people helping me. That the decision was made solely by myself. I never spoke to anybody about it. I'd spent a couple of days thinking about what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, and I wasn't enjoying it. I really wasn't enjoying it, and I didn't feel a part of the group. He had alienated me from the group. I'd get 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and it's not when you're a 13, 14, 15-year-old boy, all you want to do is play football, and you don't want to be sat on the bench. No one wants to be on the bench with regard to whatever level it is. And no, it just wasn't for me. And I made that decision myself. I informed my parents after I'd made that decision, and I lived by it. And could it have been the biggest mistake of my life? Possibly, but now I look back, it was probably what creates the what is in front of everybody, really. Why I do what I do, how I am, who I am, and what and the wherefore. It's, I don't know. I think I've gone all through my life where if I'm not comfortable in doing something, I'll air my grievances or raise my voice, and I'll say why I don't enjoy or I agree with the situation. And that may be why that I captained every club I played for. You in life, I feel that you're either a follower or a leader, and as probably the York City thing, I ain't a follower. So it's just something that at that point was the right decision for me and me alone. I think if I spoke to my parents, for instance, I may have got coerced back into just trying to keep going, and I didn't want to do that. It wasn't for me at that specific time.
You play semi-professional football. You start to get older, Rob. You end up at Whitby Town. How was football then for you? Did you start to enjoy football again once you came with maybe older guys? And it was a step down in the level, but I've played against teams like Spennymoor, and that is a really good standard of football.
Yeah, it's a good level. So I came out of York, and I had probably a month, 2 months where I didn't play football at all. I'd mess about with mates at school. I'd probably play for the school team. And really that probably reignited the passion for football itself. And then through a friend, his dad was playing local pub football. And he said, would you like to come down and train and play? And that's when the the birth of Rob Jones centre half was created. I went and I played, and like you're saying there, when you're playing with all the footballers who've been there, done it, teaching you the game in a different way, in a different manner, help you along the way, try to coerce you into being the footballer that you want to be, and it was fun. It was fun. It was good crack, good banter, and that's where really the burning desire came back from wanting nothing to do with football anymore to I want to get back into this game as quick as possible. And I went the long route. I went from Thornby Youth Club, it was called, so it was a Saturday afternoon pub league. And then I went from there, I went to Whitby, then I went to Spennymoor, then I went to Gateshead, and obviously Gateshead, I went full time to Stockport. So it took my time to get there. And I'm still a massive firm believer. If I'd have stayed at York City till I was 16-year-old, I wouldn't have gone down that path.
You mentioned that you've never been a follower and you've always had a strong mentality. See, when you were a young lad playing in the teams, would you organise the older guys, and would you not be shy in, telling the older guys, what to do and on the training pitch and in games?
I think you have to. I think it's part and parcel of who I am and what I am. I think everybody that I've worked with and played alongside know that I'm very vocal and very opinionated, and I think that probably that education from that Thornby Youth Club era and stage where you had to be vocal. I think if I wasn't vocal at that point, I would have got left behind. I think the passion and the commitment that I protrude in that, I think that helped me integrate into the group much easier than it would this kid in the corner who's only 15-year-old playing on a men's team where some of them are 40, 42, and it's causing chaos, and he just fades into the background. Where I had to make a conscious effort to get myself involved in the group. I think looking back at the York City thing, I didn't really make a massive effort to get involved in the group because they're all local players. But looking at that, I think what you've through adversity in the past, I think creates you as a person going forward into the future.
You scored 19 goals, I think at Gateshead. Were there teams before you made the move back to full time? Was there interest before that, Rob, or was it only just when Stockport County came in?
No, when I was at Spennymoor, Watford were interested at Spennymoor, but an agreement between the two clubs couldn't be done, which was disappointing from my point of view, solely. But I was at that point at the time just enjoying my football and enjoying playing. And if at that point, I think I was 19, 20 at that point, if that point came where the phone rang and I moved on, then great. But it didn't. I went to Gateshead, a step up again a little bit from Spennymoor. And pre-season, I think Doncaster came knocking, which is quite surreal, really, because I ended up there at some point, and I think the Doncaster thing couldn't get done. I think they were umming and ahhing about this, that, and the other, so that didn't get done. So that's another disappointment. So you look at that fact and you think, well, is it ever going to happen? And then, but I think that season I gave myself 6 months. I at the point I had 2 part-time jobs. I was playing semi-pro, so I got rid of one of the jobs. I looked at the part-time job. I went and worked in the gym. I went and did my own stuff on my days off. I tried to work really hard on midweek when we had a training session and obviously the games. I give myself till I think it was April, May time. So this was December. I started, right, come on, let's have 6 months. Have a right good go. See if you can get into the full-time game. If you can't get in the full-time game, then knock on the head, say semi-pros where my standard is. That's where I'll be. And I was going to join the police force. And then, thankfully, on I think it was April Fool's Day, I got the phone call from Carlton Palmer.
How did you find the step up once you arrived at Stockport? How big is the difference between semi-professional and then it is lower down in England, but it must have been a big step up at that time?
Yeah, it was an enormous step up. I think even though I'd gone and I'd worked on my strength and conditioning and fitness and technical side of it, you're still not ready for that environment. I think my first week I trained Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and on Friday I couldn't move. I'm still this 22-year-old young lad, and I couldn't move because I trained every day, and I've never done that. I'd never done that before. So I think the biggest side of it is understanding your body and being able to recover quickly. These players have done it all their careers, so Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday was easy for them. And thankfully for me, I didn't have a game on Saturday because I would have been no good to anybody. So it probably took me a month to get into that groove of training all the time, every day, sometimes double sessions, and being ready for the next day. I think that's the biggest step. The tempo of the game obviously is completely different. The quality within training sessions is obviously different, but the biggest thing was making sure that you go from day to day with the ability to train properly and as well as possible.
How long did it take you? I think obviously you did take a bit of time to get into the first team and start to become more regular. What is it that changed? Was it just pure hard work and just waiting for your chance?
No, when I went out of the transfer window. So because Stockport at that point in time were embroiled in a relegation battle, I wasn't allowed to play because I'd signed out. If they'd have been sat in mid-table and not been able to go up or go down, I could have played in the games. But thankfully for me, it was good for me. It was really good for me that I didn't have any pressure of having to play on the Saturday. I played 3 reserve games. I trained, and it was a great footing for me for the pre-season to come. I came away pre-season. I worked extremely hard to get myself as fit as possible, and I went back one of the fittest players. And then, thankfully, I made my debut in the first day of the season at Wycombe away.
How was your debut? Do you remember much about your debut? And it must have been a proud moment for you, Rob. Obviously, coming from nearly falling out of love with football and then making your professional debut, it must have been, a great day for you.
Surreal. I think it was 32, 33 degrees, which was not ideal for the first game of the season. And he didn't name the team. He named the team when we got into the dressing room. And I walked in the dressing room and my shirt's up with my name and my number. And that was just incredible. Seeing my name along all the rest of the names in the dressing room. That's the first time I'd seen it. With my name and number on. Then he pulled me outside, took me outside. He said, "You're going to start today, and you're going to start instead of the captain. So no pressure."
Wow.
And he said, "If I didn't think you were ready, I wouldn't have put you in." And that moment is surreal to an individual that's worked so hard to get back into the game. And at 23, make your debut. It was a special moment, a special occasion, and I'll forever be in debt to Carlton for giving me that opportunity.
How did you come to leave Stockport in the end, Rob?
Well, Carlton left after about 4 months, and then Sammy McIlroy came in. And being brutally honest, I knew from day one that he wasn't going didn't want to go down my path. He wanted to go down a different path. I wasn't alone in that. I think there was 5 or 6 of us that were, the writing was on the wall. He wanted to go on a different route, and I'm quite comfortable with that. I've said many times that all coaches are different, all managers are different, all players are different, and you all want different things. So he offered me the opportunity to go back to Accrington Stanley, who were in the same division as Gateshead at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And I quietly and nicely declined his offer. And I said I wanted to stay. I've worked so hard to get into professional football. I'm not going to jump back out again at the first opportunity. And then it was through a guy called Mark Prudhoe. He was the goalkeeping coach at Stockport at the time, and he'd had a conversation with Grimsby Town. Grimsby Town needed a centre half, and they invited me down to go there. I think I played 1 game against Scunthorpe in a pre-season friendly. And that was it. So the contract was terminated at Stockport. I signed a 1-year deal at Grimsby, and that was it really. That was me. Well, I thought that was me up and running. Again, I started the first game of the season, got injured. I think the second or third game, did my knee, missed a big chunk of that season. come back for the last 5 games, and I thought, well, I've only had a 1-year deal. I'll probably fall out again at some point. And Russell Slade, who was the manager at the time, who was a really good guy, he's probably the one that took my career from where it was and took it to the next level, to be honest. He then offered me a second year, to my surprise, and the second year couldn't have gone any better.
There was definitely some highlights in that season. You beat Spurs 1-0 in the cup. What are your memories of that game, Rob?
Well, the biggest memory is the day before. We'd done our shape on the pitch, and the gaffer come out with his whiteboard, and he put down their team, and he said, no matter what you do about him, you've got to worry about him, and then you've got to worry about him as well, and what about him, and look at this and look at that. And it was quite low key, a little bit of fun, a little bit of banter, really, from his point of view. But we all had our job to do. There was no pressure on us whatsoever. Tottenham were expected to come to Blundell Park and turn us over. It was on TV. It was a sellout, and it was an occasion that you either embrace or you fade into the background. And thankfully, that night we were brilliant from start to finish. I had Robbie Keane and Jermaine Defoe to deal with, so
Easy.
It was tough from that point of view. But no, we were great. The atmosphere was great. We scored late on, which probably helped us to get over the line. But no, what an occasion that was.
You said the manager helped you take the game next level. What is it he would do in training and obviously before and after games that would help you?
Well, to be fair, he was the first manager who took me aside and we did individual stuff. So I think he realised that came in late. There was the ability was there, the understanding was there, but he'd take me and put little sessions on at the end of training sessions, just little 5, 10, 15-minute things, and then you find your feet, you get better because you know more about it, you talk more, and you demand more, and you instruct people more because you know more about it. But he was brilliant from the start to finish. And every footballer out there, and whether you're semi-pro, grassroots, or professional, if you've got a manager that's 100% behind you and supports you, then it makes you play a lot differently on the pitch.
You miss out on an automatic promotion, Rob, and then you reach the playoff final, which ends in defeat. How tough was that to take? Because obviously coming so close, and your career could have, you might have, went up the leagues in England as well.
Yeah, one of the worst days of my footballing career. It was awful.
Yeah,
we didn't play well on that day. I didn't play well on that day. We got beat 1-0 to a team that we'd beat both times in the league that season. So I think we went in as favourites. I had to sit for 2 hours because I got drug tested after the game, so I couldn't actually pee at the time. So I sat in the room with these two Cheltenham players singing and dancing whilst I tried to do my drugs test, which again wasn't ideal. But again, adversity. Again, it molds you in different ways. It makes you more driven to succeed in the next time round. And I think regardless of if we'd have gone up, I still would have moved on to Hibs. There'd been rumours for Hibs for 2-3 months before that. I knew Tony had been at a couple of games that we'd played previous, but there was a good percentage of the fact that if Grimsby had gone up, I would have gone anyway.
Was there any other interest around that time, or was the interest from Hibs just too strong and you were always, as you said, you were always going to go, but the other teams obviously had a great season, so there must have been other teams that had maybe shown an interest.
Yeah, you refer to the Tottenham game. I think I got man of the match that game, and that one seemed to ignite an awful lot of interest from a lot of different people. Everybody wanted a piece of Rob Jones at that time, and my season got better as it went along. But I think there was a couple of offers at one point, but nothing really concrete. The only concrete one was Tony's and Hibs, and I'd already set my mind on joining Tony. Obviously, centre half like myself, no better man to learn from. He lives locally to me. He's from my area, so it was a no-brainer from my point of view. And I think it was done 2 or 3 days after that playoff final.
Did you know much about Scottish football and Hibs before you joined? Did you get a chance to watch many of the games?
I'd obviously, you watch the derbies up there. You know what's going on. You know who's in the division. You know some of the players within that. But you don't know all the ins and outs, because my sole focus was on Grimsby and trying to get them out of League Two into League One. So not 100% knowing what was going on at Hibs or within Scottish football, but it was a nice point to come up, see the stadium, see the city, speak to Tony, speak to people around the club, and it just felt right at that time for me to take my next step on the path.
You walked into a dressing room full of exciting young players. Did you think that was a great opportunity for you to? You mentioned a couple of times before how you're a leader. Did you think that was the right group to go into at that time?
I think that group at that time had a mixture. Obviously, the captain had left to go to Celtic, so obviously you had Kevin Thompson, Scott Brown, Stephen Fletcher, Stephen Whittaker, and then in that you had David Murphy, you had Stephen Glass, Shelton Martis came in just after me, another centre half. So there was a sprinkle of everything you needed, really, and I think it helps when you're 6'7" and you walk into a room and people take note of who you are and what you're saying. And no, that it was. I've said it in the past. The group as a whole was magnificent with me. It's always very difficult sometimes to go into a dressing room where you're an unknown, because I was an unknown. I'd come from Grimsby in League Two. I wasn't a big name, and they embraced me and they welcomed me with open arms. And I think the biggest thing is we were playing in the Inter-Total Cup 10 days after I first arrived. So it was hitting the ground running and play. I think we played a friendly game behind closed doors, and we got into the games, and I'd played really well in those games. And I think all those little ingredients help to cement you into a dressing room and gain the respect from your fellow players.
Tony Mowbray is obviously a really respected coach. How impressive was he on the training ground, Rob? And how did he help you again take your game to the next level?
Again, going from Russell into Tony. Tony would pull me, talk about this idea and that idea, and what about this and doing this and positioning and all that sort of stuff. And as I said earlier, with him being a centre half and playing at the level that he did, you listen and you take in all that information. And no, I think when you talk about centre halves, you expect them to be these big, rough, aggressive individuals that want to fight and win and shout and scream and holler. And Tony wasn't like that. Tony was very, very mild mannered. He talked to you as an individual. He wouldn't talk down at you. He talked to you. And the respect he had for you was reciprocated because of the way his manner was with each individual. So that was a new thing for me, because he never really raised his voice. He was only there 4 months when I was there. He never raised his voice once. He'd speak to you properly. He'd get his point across in the right way. And he's a guy that I'm sure everybody who's played under him has an awful lot of respect for.
Who impressed you right away in terms of players, Rob, when you went in? Obviously, guys eventually, inevitably, were going to move on from Hibs, but who impressed you at first?
Oh, Scott Brown and Stephen Fletcher. In a league of their own, the pair of them. The work rate of Scott, the touch, the understanding, the fact that he could defend and attack. And Stephen Fletcher was just a complete finisher. Special player. He could score from any area. Head, left foot, right foot, doesn't matter. The way he finished moves off in training was incredible to watch at times.
I think people forget that Scott Brown, obviously, he moulded himself into a different type of player at Celtic. But how good is it to watch an attacking midfielder in Scott Brown? It must have been great to play with as well.
No, he just had everything, and you could see how much passion he had for football. he was in his head. I think he was still just a kid playing on the park with his mates, and that's how he was from my first year there. He was box to box, probably the fittest footballer I've ever come across. But he could do everything, and he had a good complement of. He had Guillaume Bouzlin next to him, so he complemented Scott really well. He had Kevin Thompson in front of him, again complimenting him really well. But no, he was, and people would argue he still is, a complete midfielder.
You were made captain pretty early on, Rob. I don't think it came as any surprise. It must have been a proud moment for you.
Yeah, I think whenever you're made captain of a club, it's a special moment, and a moment that is something that you take great pride and admiration in. It's special putting the armband on just before the game and leading your team out. And thankfully, I've done it for every team I played for. It's something that I became accustomed to. Not the fact that I overlooked how precious it was and how delighted I was for it, but I think everywhere I went, it seemed to follow me and end up on my peg. So no, I think it's more to the detriment of the character that I am to be in that position to do that.
Tony Mowbray leaves, as you said. I think it was 4 months after you arrived. How disappointing was that? Obviously, he showed a lot of things in bringing you to Hibs, but I think that obviously you had the mentality that football kind of goes on, and you were always going to be okay anyway.
Yeah, Tony left. It was disappointing that Tony left, but he went with our best wishes and total support. But that's football. Yeah, it happens, and obviously it happened to me at Stockport when Carlton left and Simon McIlroy came in. Grimsby, Russell was leaving at the end of the season, going to Yeovil. So for me, it's just part and parcel of football. It's not nice, don't get me wrong, but it's just part and parcel of football. It just happens, and you as an individual have got to get on and look after yourself, and you just have to deal with it, process it, and move on.
John Collins comes in. What was your first impressions of working with John?
I got along with John when he first came in. Training was completely different to what Tony did, but like I said earlier, different coaches have different ways of doing things, different players have different ways of doing things, and you just buy into it and get on with it. But yeah, training was different. The way he wanted us to play was slightly different. The way he wanted us to do things was different. Off the pitch was different. But that's just how it's set up, and that's how he wants it, and that's how you get on with it.
Early on, we go on the start of what would be a great League Cup run. We'll start from the quarter final. One of my favourite derbies and derby goals. What are your memories of that game, Rob?
We were good that game. It was another light, and we were very good. We dominated that game. I know it only finished 1-0, but I think we had 3 or 4 good chances in that game, and we could have put them to bed earlier. No, I remember the corner, and being brutally honest, I think it was advertised in the press about how much Christophe Baer used to bear hug me in the box, and how many times it should have been a penalty. This one was no different. But he grabbed a hold, and this time I think I'd outstrengthed him at that point. I got a nice touch, it bounced nicely, and it just sat up, and the finish was the finish. And then I think we may have come under a bit of cosh towards the end of the game, but nothing that we couldn't deal with. And we were worthy winners that evening. And like you say, it's always nicer when you knock out your closest rivals in the quarter-final.
You said previously that you got the chance to watch derbies, but like playing in an Edinburgh derby.
Oh, it's special. It is special. I played in an awful lot of derbies over my career, and they're all special for their own warrants and their own needs. But I think when the derby's coming up, because the atmosphere in the city changes. The atmosphere around where I lived changed, and the atmosphere around the club changes. Everything in the press is build up to the game. At times, you feel like it's the biggest game in the world. But to play in, it's special to play in. There is that added bit of spice. There is that added bit of extra to make sure in your motivation. But for me, it's all about the atmosphere, and the atmosphere in derbies is incredible.
Did you prefer the derbies Easter Road or Tynecastle? Obviously, the atmosphere at Tynecastle can be electric as well.
Well, they're different in many ways. The atmosphere at Tynecastle is different because the way the stands are built, they're so bit old school, right enclosed onto you, so you can more or less hear things. They throw things at you. There's gestures and whatnot. So that's something I quite liked. The banter from the away fans into me and me into them. It's something that I became accustomed to. Where at Easter Road, it's different. The atmosphere is a different passion. The atmosphere is a passion of togetherness. I've said many times that Hibs is a family club, and there's no more probably pivotal moment within a derby at home, where there's extremely passionate supporters that want the very best for them. Those 11 players are on the pitch, support you from start to finish. And then obviously, even when you win at home, obviously Sunshine Leaf comes on at the end of the game, and when that comes, that is surreal.
They get to the semi-final against Johnston, which is obviously a happy memory at Tynecastle. A brilliant game to watch. As a fan, it must have been great to play in.
No, it was good for us. Obviously, we were the away team, so we didn't step foot in their home dressing room, which was nice. Yeah. So to us, it was just, I think, from that game, I think you take the positives from the derbies, and you come in not to just play against St Johnstone, but you come in to do a job at your local rivals to get yourself into a cup final, which gives you that added bonus and that added extra. No, the game started really well. I think we were dominating again. Obviously, I think Benji scored. I think it was Benji early on. Yeah. Then their boy scored. Jason Scotland scored late on with a header, and then obviously Murph pops up with a free kick. So, no, I think, and I've said it in the past before, I think that run, we had an awful lot of luck in that run. Yes, we wanted wins when we needed them, but the ball seemed to fall in the right areas and the right places, and thankfully we capitalised on it.
You mentioned a couple of players there. Benji, a player that I love to watch, but David Murphy, I mean, he's the best left back. I've been watching Hibs for 20 years now, and he's easily the best left back I've watched Easter Road. How good was that having him on your left hand side?
Well, he's another one from my area, so I see him from time to time. No, he was brilliant. Left back who marauded forward. It was like a winger at times. Whenever you were under a bit of pressure, you could give him the ball and he'd deal with it. Loved to tackle, loved to defend. All round, really good guy, honest, reliable, and no, he was a pleasure to play alongside for the time that I was there.
Build up to the final. Ivan Sproul was on the podcast, and he mentioned that you went away for the week, and he also that John Collins gave you a DVD of highlights. I think it was the night before. How good did your highlights look on the DVD, Rob?
I've still got them. My little boys, they watch them every now and again, and it gets you. It does get you. Yeah. I think we had a collective DVD at the hotel, and then on the coach on the way to the game, there was just a little 45-second DVD of you as an individual. And if that can't get you going, then you're in the wrong business. It was great. The motivational side of it was terrific. I think all the boys bought into that side of it, about looking at what you brought so far, why you've got to where you are today. Filled you with so much confidence and pride. And I think that showed when the game kicked off, and again we dominated the game.
You lead the team out as captain. I mean, most boys, especially from down south, it's the FA Cup final that's kind of what I'm about as a boy. But how special was that to lead the team out at Hampden?
Oh, incredible. It wasn't until the doors opened that it really hit me. And then as I was walking up the tunnel, the lump in the throat was there. The shaky leg was there. All my family, my son was above me. First game he'd ever been to. And no, it's just one of those things where so many emotions go around at one specific time, and you've got to try and keep a lid on it because you've got to go and play football. You cannot let that emotion override what you're trying to do. So those were great emotions. And to be fair, there's two games in my whole career: that cup final, and when the last game of the season at Doncaster when we beat Brentford. Those are two games that I was not nervous. Every other game in my whole career, I've always been nervous before the game kicks off. The cup final and the last game of the season against Brentford are the only two games in my whole career that I was never nervous. Emotional, yes, but nervous, no.
Hibs captains have got a habit of scoring headers in cup finals, Rob. I mean, and it ends up being one of the most iconic images as well in the snow. So I can remember it. I can close my eyes and remember the snow coming down. Talk us through the goal.
It's something we worked on during the week. Obviously, I won't shy away from the fact I like scoring goals. I don't think Hibs will shy away from the fact that I was the main target every time we had a corner or a free kick.
Yeah.
That picture, that iconic picture itself, is up on my son's wall in his bedroom. The one where I carry Fletcher like a baby in one hand is also on the wall upstairs in my boy's bedroom. No, it was like you grow up and you have dreams and you have wishes and you want to meet your heroes and all that sort of stuff. And thankfully through my career, I managed to fulfill three dreams. One was to play in a cup final. Two was to score in a cup final, and the third one was to lead Sheffield Wednesday out at Hillsborough as a captain. So I got to do all three, and it's quite a humbling experience from my point of view that I was given that opportunity to do that. But to score in a cup final, the first goal, snowing in the middle of March, is just quite incredible. And then obviously the song, the infamous song, runs around Hampden Park for 15-20 minutes, and it's just incredible.
You mentioned that song, the Rob Jones song. I mean, is that quite surreal to have your own song sung by the fans? I mean, again, scoring in cup finals is young boys' dreams, but also having a song being back to yours as well.
It's different because you expect the tricky winger, the flying winger, or the centre forward who scores all the goals. You expect them to have songs named after them because they're the ones that normally win your games. But for a big ball-headed centre half to have a song named after him is quite special and quite humbling.
How did you find the rest of the game, Rob? It just seemed that team had everything had come together at the right time. And normally, favourites in cup finals go on to win, but sometimes, it can be being the favourites, but it never seemed in doubt that day.
No, to be fair, the first 5 minutes were horrific. I think Murph threw the ball back to me. My control was all over the place. I kicked it out for a throw-in, and I'm thinking, oh, what's going to go on here? And Murph looked at it and said, what are you doing, Jonah? So the first 5 minutes wasn't ideal. But after that, no, I think, like I said earlier, I think everything was aligned for us to go on and win that trophy that year. I think that was our time to go and showcase what we do as individuals and as a team. And that game just went seamlessly. We had a young kid playing in midfield who played a handful of games, got man of the match in Lewis Stevenson. He was incredible on that day. And everything seemed to go right. Every time we went forward, we looked like we were going to score. Ivan was causing chaos down that far side. And no, I think we were in complete control from start to finish. There was a bit of a scare after our first goal. I think they had a chance in the 6-yard box, which came to nothing in the end. But no, it was an occasion that everybody came to the party, and thankfully for us, we got our just rewards.
You mentioned Ivan Sproul. I mean, I was lucky enough to have him on my podcast. He had a similar story to you, Rob, about where he'd come from, and then obviously getting the chance to come to him. I mean, how was he? He was a lively character as a player.
Oh, of course. Sometimes I would call him speedboat no driver. But no, what a lovely guy, great guy, someone I have the utmost respect for. He played part time. He was a welder at the time. He'd come over from Ireland, new country. I think didn't he score a hat trick at Ibrox in his debut? Just some things that you couldn't write about really, and no, he did great. Then he obviously went to Bristol City, did great there, and then came back up. But no, a lovely guy, had a great career, and was a big influence on that cup run that season.
The full whistle goes in the cup final, Rob. Sunshine and Leafs playing. Does it sink in straight away, or is it quite hard to take everything in? I mean, do you think back to the time where you made that choice to just leave the chance of full-time football, and then all of a sudden, you're on the Hampden pitch?
Yeah, but I'm a believer. You cannot influence the past. You can only affect the future. So I'm someone who tries not to dwell on things that have gone in a different way, in a different manner. Being brutally honest, when it went to 3-0, I had a smile on my face, and I was having a bit of fun and crack with David Murphy because, like I said, it went to 3-0 and we were in that much control. I believed at that point we were never going to lose this game, ever. No, I really enjoyed probably the last 20, 25 minutes, really enjoyed it. And we were in complete control and cruising at that point.
Do you remember the celebrations after, and obviously for the next few days?
Yeah, I remember coming back on the bus, and there was chaos on the bus on the way back, as you would expect. I think Stephen Whittaker had cuddled the trophy all the way home. Wouldn't let anybody have it. Obviously went to the chambers, which was lovely. Then the open top bus, which, again, as a kid, you watch it on TV when they do the open top bus parade, and you wonder what it's like, and your vision and thoughts on what it's like is nowhere near to what it's like when it actually happens to you. I think there was about 100 and 120,000 people out that evening. It took us 2.5 hours to get from one end of Leaf Walk to the other. I think it's probably the most humbling experience I've been on, because when you're a player, you play for 90 minutes, you applaud the fans, you go in the dressing room and you go home. And you don't really get to understand what it actually means to these individuals. And thankfully, when you're on a open top bus like that, you realise how many people you actually influence by playing football. And thankfully, we influenced them that day in a very positive manner.
There was also a semi-final defeat to someone in the Scottish Cup. Do you think that was a real missed opportunity for the team that we had as well?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, the first game was a draw, so we had to go back to a replay. Got beat by a penalty late on. No, I think the way that season had gone for us, I still truly believe that if we'd have won that game, we'd have won the cup final, because it was just a line for us, and we were playing well at the time. But I think the replay done firm, and I think we knocked on the door many times and just couldn't get over that line, and then obviously got done with a sucker punch late on. But yeah, for me, missed opportunity. Yeah, I think so. But if you had said to me, yeah, you'd win one trophy this season and dominating that, you'd have taken it at the start of the season. So you take everything on its positives and its merits.
You mentioned that obviously a couple of the top young players had left before you came, but with that team there, do you think if that team had stayed together and maybe continued to strip? I know it's a bit of a fantasy thing because Hibs are never going to compete with the clubs that these players leave to, and I know that a lot of Hibs fans have thought that that team could have really, challenged and won a lot more trophies as well.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to answer. Obviously, Kevin, he left in the January and went to Rangers. There was big talk about Scott going to Rangers or Celtic in the January, but he managed to stay, thankfully. Then he left in the summer. Obviously, David Murphy left and went to Birmingham. Fletcher upsticked and went to Burnley. I think Guillaume Bouzlin, he went down to Coventry. So there was a bit of an exodus at that point. But again, that's football, and I think there's only really Man United being able to keep that nucleus of players for such a long time, and that's probably why they were so successful. For us, there was constraints financially regarding players' wages and whatnot, and transfer fees and things. And at that point, it was. I don't think it was a given, but I think there's a bit of an expectation that if the top two in the league come a calling for a player, they eventually get him.
Yeah. John Collins leaves, and Big Mixu Patalainen comes in. What was the Mixu, and how did you get along?
Mixer's a good guy. He was great with me, and I think he got me. I think he's a bit of a grumpy sod, just like myself. Desperate to win, desperate to do the right things. But no, I think we had one ding dong in the time that we were there, and that was over the transfer to Nottingham Forest. But apart from that, no, got along really well, understood each other extremely well, and just an all right good guy. And obviously he brought in Donald Park, who has been probably my mentor through my coaching badges.
You mentioned Donald Park. He's also been on the podcast. I mean, how good has it been working with Donald? I mean, a guy that has got so much respect all around Scottish football and all around.
He's one of the nicest men you'll ever come across. He's a bit of a Jack Russell at times, so he'll have a go. But no, his experience is second to none. The reason Mixu brought him in was plain to see. I've kept in touch with him ever since I left. He's took me through all my coaching badges, which has been brilliant. And he's always at the end of the phone, so he'll always get back to you when you've got a question or you're not sure about something. And no, he's one of the good guys in football, Donald.
You mentioned that there was interest before Nottingham Forest. You end up leaving to go to Scunthorpe United. But how do you look back on your time with Hibs?
Oh, with the biggest admiration possible. I remember earlier I said I came to Hibs as an unknown centre-half from League Two. I left as everybody knew who Rob Jones was. I left a completely different player than the player that arrived. And the club gave me so much. I'd like to think that I gave back as much as I got. But the club as a whole, the city as a whole, the people, the supporters, it couldn't have been any better for me at that point in time. And the reason I left was because I wanted to go and play in the Championship, and I wanted that opportunity to try and get myself into that Premier League mould. It never happened, but I think if it had not gone, I may have looked back in times like as now, thinking if I just went and did that, if I just had an opportunity to go and do that, and that's the only reason I left. If I had my time again, Scunthorpe was a difficult period for me. Another difficult period for me. It was tough. Dressing room was tough. Me becoming accustomed to Saturday, Tuesday became tough again. And no, it's one of those where lots of different factors within that dressing room around the football club didn't allow me to be the Rob Jones that was at Hibs and at Grimsby, and the guy that went to Doncaster and the Sheffield Wednesday. there was a bit of a constraint there, unfortunately.
At first, you go on loan to Sheffield Wednesday, and I mean that must have been such an exciting, I mean a massive club. Must have been a great move, especially the difficulties at Scunthorpe. It must be great to get the chance to just leave that all behind.
No, it was great to get out and have a fresh start. And for me, a Sheffield Wednesday fan, what better club to go to? I was actually playing golf. I was playing golf at Forest Pines with one of the lads, and my agent rang and said Chris Evans has just been on the phone. He wants you to go to Sheffield Wednesday. And at that specific time, the only Chris Evans that I knew was the radio DJ. So I find that a bit funny, and I'm thinking, what I'm not sure what you're talking about here. But no, Chris Evans was the assistant manager. Again, a really good guy. Left the golf course, 13th hole, didn't play anymore, jumped in my car, got my stuff together and raced to Sheffield. Again, surreal. I sat in the dressing room the next morning and I just sat and I looked around and I'm thinking, well, hold on a minute. Where did David Hurst sit? Where did Carlton Palmer sit? Where did Nigel Pearson sit? I'm sitting in the same place as somebody else, and my heroes when I watched them on the terraces. And again, another surreal episode in my football career.
Did you have mates as well? I had mates that were Sheffield Wednesday fans, and the games, were you able to get them tickets?
All my mum's family are Sheffield Wednesday fans. Yeah. Not so much my mates because I live this side, but my mum was brought up not far from Sheffield, so all my mum's family are Sheffield Wednesday fans. And tickets for all family was a given, and it was a special time in my career.
Who were some of the good players and the good pro played with at Sheffield Wednesday?
Jose Semedo, who came in the summer that I signed permanently, Portuguese midfielder, best mates with Cristiano Ronaldo. So really, well, what a player! Danny Bath came in a centre half when we signed on the same day on loan. He came from Wolves. Young centre half, complemented each other really well. Nicky Weaver, been there, done it with Man City, all round top guy. You'll never meet a nicer guy in football than Nicky Weaver. Gary Medine, the centre forward, lunatic. Boy called Ben Marshall. He came across from Blackburn, the next best thing, and he was terrific in that first year he was there. David Prutton, another lunatic, really good guy. I came very close with Pruts. So again, you talk about dressing rooms, and there has to be certain ingredients in dressing rooms for clubs to do really well. And thankfully, I was in one in Grimsby, which was a good dressing room when we got to the playoffs. Obviously, one at Hibs when we won the cup final. There was one at Sheffield Wednesday when we got promoted into the championship, and then another one at Doncaster when we won the league.
You mentioned you had a couple of madmen, and what is it they would do that would separate them for the normal people?
They're just lunatics. Very, very outspoken. Don't think sometimes before they speak or they take actions. Sometimes take for granted where they are and what they're doing. But no, just all around characters really. And dressing rooms need characters. You can't all be serious all the time. You have to have a bit of fun and a bit of chaos. And all the best dressing rooms have that.
How did you end up leaving Sheffield Wednesday? Eventually, you signed for Doncaster. It must have been disappointing to leave after a couple of seasons.
Well, yeah, Gary Megson brought me in. Obviously, Gary got the sack midway through my full season there. Dave Jones came in, and again, like the Sammy McIlroy thing, he wanted to do things his way and go in his direction. And unfortunately, every time he looked at me, he saw Gary Megson, and that was the writing on the wall for me. Massive disappointment that we just got back into the championship, gearing up to play in the championship as, again, Sheffield Wednesday captain. And I get the phone call the day before pre-season. Well, I don't get the phone call. My agent gets the phone call to say that I'm free to leave. I could have stayed. I had a year left. But I'm a big believer that every Saturday that you don't play is a Saturday that you'll never ever get back. And I wanted to play football. Dean Saunders called, and we got on like a house on fire, me and Dean. And the deal was agreed between the two clubs. The deal was agreed between me and the club itself. And I left Sheffield Wednesday, yes, with a heavy heart. Don't get me wrong. It was a heavy heart because it's my club. But for football reasons, I needed to go. And thankfully, the 3 years at Doncaster, well, probably 2.5 years at Doncaster, couldn't have gone any better.
You mentioned Dean Saunders, actor that's well known. What did you like about him, and what is it about him that makes him a good manager?
He's just a character. He's got a story for absolutely everything. He's like a big kid, all wrapped up. Join and train every now and again, be the best player, and he just oozes that charisma. It was just laugh a minute with him. Serious at times, we understand that, but it was just laugh a minute. And some of his mannerisms and the way he spoke was just comical at times. And no, we just got along, clicked really well. We had a good relationship, him and I. No, I think that showed out on the pitch.
You mentioned the good times you had at Doncaster, which included it looked to be a playoff place, but ended up being automatic. I mean, that must have been a special day.
Yeah, it was. I think it's sad, really, that it came down to the final day of the season because we'd been beat by Notts County at home. I think if we'd have beat Notts County, we'd have been home and finished. But no, the Brentford game is a game that probably in every player that played that day will remember it vividly. Every supporter who was at that game will remember it vividly. And being brutally honest, the week couldn't go any better. I'd set out the training Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. They're travelling down. All the players from the squad travelled, even though they weren't involved. Everybody travelled. And it'd gone to plan for 88 and a half minutes. It all gone to plan because all we needed was a point to get promoted. We weren't too het up about winning the league. All we want to do is get out of that League One and get back into Championship. That was it. That was the main aim. That was the sole focus. And then obviously what happened. The penalty was taken. The boy hit the bar. The ball bounced. The boy got volleyed away. And then the club legend, who's been there for about 1,000 years, he pops up and scores a goal that wins us the league. And again, another surreal part of my career. Another experience that you can walk away and talk about for forever and a day. It was just incredible. I think the only bit that it would have been better if it was at home. That's the only bit, because only 3,000 of our fans that day got to witness that. I think if we were at home in front of 12, 14,000, it would have been that more sweet, to be honest.
Who were the good players in that Doncaster team?
Oh, it was the vast majority of them. Neil Sullivan obviously played for Tottenham in the Premier League and Wimbledon. You had Big J McComb, nice centre half. Tommy Spur, Paul Quinn, who's known from up in Scotland. James Coppinger, the club legend. Chris Brown, centre forward. Billy Painter, another lunatic, but really good guy. Kyle Bennett, who was a winger at that time. Andy Griffin came in from Newcastle, who was just an all-round top guy. He didn't play an awful lot, but he was just a team player. He just loved being around the lads. The lads loved being around him. David Cottrell, who I think he got 20 assists that season. A lot of them onto this big bald head, which was great. Ian Hume came in. John Lundstrom, who's now at Sheffield United, he came in and played. Paul Keegan. So I could probably go on and tell you everybody, to be honest, because everybody in that dressing room played their part that year. And like I said before, it was just the ingredients of that dressing room gave us the opportunity to go and fulfil the things that we fulfilled.
You had a bit of experience eventually with coaching with Doncaster. When did you come to the decision that you wanted to be quite early on in your career?
Well, to be fair, Grimsby, I took the under 12s. Moved from Grimsby up to Hibs, and when I was doing my coaching badges, I worked with the 17s. Sheffield Wednesday, I worked with the 14s. Doncaster, I then went and had the 23s and the 18s every now and again. So alongside playing, I was always coaching, and yeah, that's what I knew that what I wanted to do next. Thankfully, that year we won the league. I'd more or less run the show, to be honest. Dictated the teams, the shape, what we did in training, all that sort of stuff. So that whetted the appetite for that. But yeah, I think from a very, very early time, I realised that what my next step after playing was going to be was within some coaching at some capacity.
You finish up at Hartlepool. How did you enjoy the last bit of your career? How do you look back on your career, Rob?
I didn't enjoy the last bit.
Okay.
Being brutally honest, when I broke my neck at Doncaster, people kept telling me to finish, and I wouldn't finish. I think I played 50 more games. I went to Hartlepool to help a friend of a friend who needed a centre half. Played a few games here and there. Didn't really get into the team on a regular basis. Signed another year just to be around the players, basically. So be that old head in the dressing room, be that one that guides people and whatnot. And no, I knew that was going to be my last year. I did know it was going to be last year because my body more or less had given up. He'd had enough. I'd get injured. I'd work hard, get fit again, and then quickly get injured again, and then it was just a vicious cycle. So I didn't really enjoy that last bit. I think we all have a crystal ball where we finish that final game of the season. You score the winner. You get clapped off by every supporter possible. Players do this, players do that. And it wasn't that case. It was just I more or less petered out towards the end, and that bit was disappointing. But when I look back, so now I can reflect on my career as a whole. I was a 14-year-old boy who come out of football because he chose to come out of football. He fell out of love with football. And then when I retired at 37, I'd played for my boyhood club. I'd scored in the cup final. I'd captained my team in the cup final. I played in Europe. I'd co-managed a team that won League One. I'd got promoted with my boyhood team. I'd scored 59 goals in my whole career. And you look back and you think, bloody hell, you've done some really good stuff there. And I think the biggest thing is how much you've influenced other people in a positive manner and a positive way. And I'm very proud of the fact that I did that, and even more proud of the people that give me the opportunity to do that.
And what are you up to now? I know you're a coach. How much are you enjoying, and where are you coaching just now, Rob?
I'm coaching in Middlesbrough, so Middlesbrough's probably 15, 20 minutes from me. So I coach in there with the younger ones, which is great. Love it. Really enthusiastic. Some very, very good footballers in the group I have. So my passion now is not being on the pitch and kicking the ball around. My passion now is being on the pitch and dictating and handing over my experience and my knowledge to others. And hopefully they'll get to the point where they have a career, not like mine, but a career that they're also proud of.
It must be nice, going back to that coach you spoke about as a young player that basically was the main reason that you fell in love with football. It must be nice to influence kids and young players, directly and try and have less of the guys in the game. It must be a great feeling.
Yeah, I coach not because Rob Jones wants a coach. I coach because I feel I've got a lot of knowledge and expertise and experience to hand over to the next group of players. And if they take one thing away from a coaching session or a season that they've worked with me, and that allows them to go and fulfill their dreams, then I'm absolutely delighted. And that's the whole reason why I do it.
Have you got ambitions to be a manager? And you've had a lot of good managers. Have you tried to take, even from managers that maybe not got on with, is there anything that you've taken from the managers as well?
There's bits from each manager that you take, different mannerisms. I am my own kind of guy. I am my own. I do my things my own little way. But no, I think for me, I'm an open book. I think if the environment that I go into, as long as I'm given the opportunity to influence the players around me in a positive manner, in a positive way, I'm happy. Whether that's in the academy, in the 18s, 23s, first team, I'm a real open book with regard to that and with regard to the future. Like I said earlier, I'm really, really enjoying what I'm doing at the moment. I work with the younger ones, and it's fantastic, very rewarding. And no, you never say never to anything, but you just, for me now, I'm just enjoying being where I am, doing what I'm doing, being able to see my kids when I want to see my kids. Because football is all encompassing. Where now I can watch them play football whenever I want. I'm in the house all the time. I see them when I come home from school. So right now I've got a good mixture and a good blend of what I want and what's most important to me.
I ask every guest to pick the best 11 teammates that they played with. It's probably been difficult for you. You've played with obviously quite a few teams and players as well, Rob.
Oh, it's been tough. I'm still scribbling some of them down.
You can have a subs bench.
It's tough because this one, and anyone I play with reads this, they'll go, "Well, why wasn't I in there? Why wasn't I in there?" But no, I'm sure if we'd sat here for 2 hours, I'd probably go through most of the squad. To be honest,
yeah.
Goalkeeper wise, I've already referred to him at some point as Nicky Weaver. He was not just a good goalkeeper, but top guy, really good guy. It was very close between him and Bywater and Neil Sullivan. So do you see? I've already given you 3, and I've only got 11. So it's difficult. Centre half, probably the best centre half that I've teamed up with is the boy Danny Bath, who came to Sheffield Wednesday from Wolves, who's now at Stoke. Yeah, really good player. Complemented each other really well. We've talked about David Murphy, best left back I play with. Terrific. Scotty Brown, we spoke about Scotty Brown, him, Samido, and Guillaume Bouzlin probably playing that midfield.
What a player Boozy was.
Magnificent.
A brilliant player to watch. Different.
Yeah, magnificent player. Really good guy, but no, what a player. Cotterill, we spoke about Cotterill. I can't miss him out because he used to put the ball in my head and he used to score goals. So I can't miss him out there. Fletcher as a striker, he is and was something completely different. Big boy Chris Brown was brilliant. James Coppinger again is another one who's a wide player, brilliant. So we could go on forever and ever and ever. Yeah. But I think I'll give you 11 or so there. So let's just sit with them ones.
Who would manage that team? Who's the best manager you played with? Played under, sorry.
All different in different ways. Tony was Tony. Russell Slade was Russell Slade. Dean was Dean. Gary Megson was Gary Megson. I think if I'm go on the sentiment side of it, I'll probably look at Gary Megson because he was that Sheffield Wednesday manager who was a Sheffield Wednesday fan. He was a bit of a grumpy ass like me. He was the one who, if he didn't do it his way, that was it, finished. So I was a bit like that. But I think I'd mould probably 4 or 5 into one manager, and then you probably have the super manager that no one can get anywhere near.
Brilliant. Always end the podcast with a question from myself, Rob. How would you like to be remembered as a footballer?
What a question that is. I think I would like to be remembered as the footballer that gave everything he had in order for his team to win a game, regardless of stature instead of merit or ability. So I think I would always like to be remembered as someone that the supporters can relate to. I think that's probably the best thing from my point of view.
Brilliant. I've taken up enough of your time, Rob, but I'd just like to say, obviously I spoke about how much I enjoyed watching Easter Road, but I just want to say thank you for for what you gave to Hibs. And I mean, I mentioned the Derby goal in the quarter final, and then the cup final at Ham. That's something that I'll take to my grave. That's with me forever now. And you were a massive part of that. So I just wanted to say thank you before I let you go.
Oh, no, it's an absolute pleasure from my point of view. Special moments for me too.
Top man. I'll let you go, Rob. Again, thanks very much for coming on my podcast, and take care, mate.
And you, look after yourself.